Make the ground shake.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Game Hub. I'm your host, GamerK, and it's been taking a lot to get this video out because I kind of had to replay the thing that I'm reviewing because I kind of forgot about it, and it took a lot longer than I care to admit. And I mean, I had to go through some stuff because honestly, I beat the story, just the extra stuff, and the end, it's a little pain in the butt, but basically, 2 years ago, Kingdom Hearts 3 finally released. After years of waiting for that 3 to come out, after prequel games and semi-sequel games, it was a long time coming, and it was praised well enough. And then a year later, DLC came out, and that had me a little worried because, I mean, Kingdom Hearts never had a DLC, and that's one of the things I loved about the series. It had a great story, and any of the extra stuff can be explained in completing a bunch of stuff in the main game, or going back and doing it all. And, I mean, the trailer definitely made a lot of people hyped, especially one YouTuber that I watch, and his reactions still crack me up even to this day. And also because of the death of Leonard Nimoy and I can't remember the other guy who voiced Xehanort for the third game. A third voice actor for Xehanort came out. My buddy Christopher Lloyd. All honesty, it works. His voice just works for Xehanort. It really does. If Doc Brown decided to be evil. So, basically, Judge Doom. Roger Rabbit fans, you'll appreciate that. So as I was excited for the ReMind DLC, as I was playing it, I mean, this was my level when I got the DLC and when I watched the trailers. And as I started to play it, that excitement kind of went down, and then it went back up again, and then down again. And oh boy, I mean, as far as DLCs goes, this was one I was not really dreading to review, but after I beat it the first time, I'm like, I was expecting more. So does this DLC finally unlock the secrets that Kingdom Hearts has hidden for over a decade? Or does it just lock them up tight until we find the correct key? Well, let's dive into it. And obviously, like I said, the DLC was released on January of 2020. So, yeah. The beginning of a terrible year. And from all the trailers, I'm gonna save my outrage for the end because I don't want to get mad right off the bat. Basically, the DLC opens up with a couple extra insights, a couple hidden scenes of Xigbar and Luxord at Olympus Coliseum, kind of bantering back and forth. And again, these two characters I really love because they always seem like they know a little bit more than everyone else for some reason or another, and it's never really fully revealed. It's always keeping us guessing, which I love. A couple backstory with I think young Xehanort and the Master of Masters. And again, never fully revealing who he is a real pain in the behind for me because it's getting to the point where show us. It's like one of those long thriller movies, you know, when you can feel like you know who the culprit's going to be, and then they pull like 10 180 turns that completely go over our heads. It's almost like The Usual Suspects a little bit. Right at the end, where Kaiser Sose is revealed, and everyone in the theater or at home. It's like, what happened? And that's kind of the excitement I was kind of expecting when it came to this, because I saw the Master of Masters cutscene in the trailer. I saw a whole bunch of extra stuff in the trailer with Zigbar and Luxord. I was hoping for that big payoff. That, all honesty, Kingdom Hearts, the ending of the actual game, kind of left me hanging a little bit. It shows a little bit more of the organization's plans before the ending, before the final confrontation, and it definitely shows a couple ideas of what everyone's goals were going for throughout the game. It's not dived into that much, which kind of sucks. Not only that, I'm gonna say this: the way they went about this DLC is by far, it's not as lazy as some of the other DLCs I've seen, but when you're doing a DLC, something that you need to do is do something that was different in the main game. Like, go do extra story a little bit. Like, that's what I was expecting. I was hoping like we would have to go back to all the other worlds and solve a new issue. But obviously with the organization members dead, there was no really point for that. But I was thinking like maybe like somehow the Heartless, the Nobodies, or the Unversed are back, and we need to just stop them. And it's shadow regiments of the organization members in each world. I mean, I know that's a big of a long shot, but some of the worlds needed a little bit more in-depth story a little bit. As I commented on my top 13 missed opportunities in Kingdom Hearts 3. But overall, the way they went about it was beyond meh. They just redid the ending segment of the game, of the Keyblade Graveyard, which, all honesty, I really do love the Keyblade Graveyard. I really do love the kind of maze-ish area they do. But my only problem is we have to redo all the organization bosses again. Yeah. And, but there's a little bit of a twist, like when you're fighting Dark Riku, Zigbar, Terranort and Vanitas, Shion and Sayax. You get to switch a little bit. You get to play as Riku, Roxas, and Aqua. And you get a little extra commentary, banter between said groups before Sora gets there. Oh, fun! It add? I mean, it kind of adds a little extra, but not in the long run. And after the Riku section, Demix comes back and takes the replica that was left by the Data Riku. And all honesty, Demix did not get enough screen time in this game. I'll admit he was an annoying little pest in the second game, but I was because of the trailers for the game, I was really hoping Demix would have more of a spotlight on him in this game, or even appear in one of the worlds and not Twilight Town like in the game. But overall, yeah, when I want to do a new DLC and explore more, the last thing I want to do is do the final bits of the game again with very little variation. Although I do admit, like, I mean, even when we fight Terranort near the beginning, and then we have to fight the Infernal boss, which is kind of like Roxas' Heartless, that's a secret boss in the game, it kind of feels like they just took him from the game and pasted him in there just to have something to fight. And also, not being the Lingering Will fighting Terranort, that was a big letdown, because I was really expecting that. Because, come on! We've waited years, like a good 10 years, to play as the Lingering Will again, like we did at the end of Birth by Sleep, and fighting him in number 2, and like he appears and we don't even get to use him. It's kind of a letdown. And also seeing Naminé with Sora in the hearts of people as he's kind of going back in time and helping people in some bizarre Yoda-ish way. I don't really understand how that worked, but it was just, I feel like they were making it more complicated than need be instead of making a great, cool DLC. And also, another thing, I mean, near the end of the game, I mean, going into Scala ad Caelum, I think that's how you pronounce it. I can't remember that much. But I gotta admit, exploring it more and going into the little crevices and doing these kind of puzzles and these small boss fights to complete the level, I really did enjoy that. They added a little bit more to the level instead of just constantly, you know, fighting the Xehanort goat armors. I did enjoy it. Also, near the end of the game, having everyone except Sora and Kairi, Axel, Roxas, Xion, Ventus, Terra, Aqua, Mickey, Riku, having them all grouped together and fighting the Xehanort 13 Darkness armors, I gotta admit, that was such a freaking badass idea. Controlling one once in a while and using their special abilities and then doing kind of reaction command-ish stuff to fight them. It's just so beautiful. And that epic moment near the end with Mickey slowly walking toward the door of light and fighting off the darknesses. And then later using the Keyblade as Sora to connect all the keyholes in this. It just felt like an epic moment that really needed to be more emphasized instead of doing the 13 organization bosses again, which I hate to nag about that as much as I do, but I'm going to bring it up again later on. I mean, the story didn't end any differently. It just kind of repeated itself. I mean, we already knew what was going to happen and if they were doing it this way. And then the second half of the DLC, which, was it annoying? I mean, here's the thing. When they introduced the Radiant Garden characters, Leon, Sid, Youth, or Aerith, I can't remember exactly who was in there. When they brought them in there, and we got Radiant Garden a little bit, I thought, oh my god, because Sora's gone somewhere, we're going to be playing as Riku. There's some problems back in Radiant Garden. We're going to need to fight the Heartless, fight the Nobodies, fight the Unversed, and fight some new bosses in order to help a little bit. But no, we get the absolute most annoying thing that I felt from a Kingdom Hearts 2, and they just cranked up the decibels on it. Because in the trailer, we got some really cool boss fights of the organization members. I mean, we got to do a reaction thing showing with Zigbar and all the others. Little did we know those were just data bosses. What? So, for those of you who need to take a breather, let's recap. DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3 ideas were, let's do the final 13 bosses again, but you can play as Roxas, Aqua, or Riku during them. We'll have this big epic thing with all the side people and them fighting the armors. Mickey will have a badass moment. Sora will unlock all the keyholes to connecting them. It'll be an amazing thing. And then for the second half, let's see. We fought the organization members twice now. How about we go for 3? Doing the data bosses over again is the least amount of fun that, I mean, all honesty, this may have just been me, and I didn't beat them because I'm not a glutton for punishment. I don't do the excessive hard bosses. I've never done hard mode. I don't play the Cuphead bosses on super hard difficulty. I'm not playing the No Straight Roads bosses on super hard difficulty. Why? Because I'm not a glutton for that kind of punishment. Why in the heck would you introduce Radiant Garden again, only to have us in a computer playing as Sora again when we're Riku in the story of it, or somewhat story? Like, I mean, making them a little bit cooler with the reactions, it kind of doesn't make up for reusing the 13 Darknesses again for a third time in the same game, in literally with is the same game DLC. You could have done so. I mean, the one cool thing is, like, throughout the game, you can make these battle scenes with the characters and put them in cool poses, adds different lighting effects, have the Heartless there, have the other characters. I mean, that's a fun idea if you didn't incorporate it into this stupid DLC segment. I mean, you could have done that with the game itself. You didn't need the DLC in order to make this cool thing. But, oh my god. And I'm at a loss for words right now. Usually I have lines of paper commenting on a DLC. And this one, it kind of feels like they ran out a little bit because they couldn't add more worlds because that was going to take so much more time. And they took more of the time to animate all of Rapunzel's hair, probably. But the big thing for me is, like, I checked it out because I wasn't beating the 13 Darknesses because I'm not that skillful. Once completed, you will fight the secret boss at the end of the DLC. Who is it gonna be? I mean, all honesty, when I saw secret boss, like, on the YouTube videos, and thankfully no one was putting, like, the image of the person because that's an ass move, I was thinking the Forgotten Masters that appear near the end with Zigbar. I was thinking maybe Ava, who didn't show up. I was thinking the Master of Masters himself. You know, something Kingdom Hearts related that they've been building up for over a decade. But no, it's the stupid poster boy for the game for the Toy Story world, Yozora. How about no? You make this epic DLC, and the payoff is more questions and more waiting. One thing that really pisses me off about this DLC is they were in the game. Why weren't they in this DLC? I'm talking about Maleficent and Pete. They could have dived a little bit more into their searching every single world for the box. They could have also shown their reactions to Zigbar with the old masters at the end of the game, but they didn't do that. So it's almost like Maleficent and Pete could have been scraped from this game entirely, and you wouldn't have noticed. And the DLC, oh my god. This is one of those DLCs where I was happy I played it, but I was also not happy that I played it. Because it just makes me realize that they're still working on something else for the next game, and I'm really terrified because, I mean, obviously they're going to bring back worlds that they never did before. Hopefully there will be answers answers for the questions that they've given us. If I could describe this in another way, I've never seen the show Lost, and I know a lot of people probably have. A lot of people were very disappointed in the ending of Lost because there were questions that were never answered that needed to be. This is what ReMind is to me. It's the promise of answers, but at the end of the day, they just give you more questions to think about while they work on the next thing. And given that the first part of it, the part I was criticizing a lot, is 4 hours to beat, and then a couple extra hours to do the data fights and get all the trophies for it. It just feels like it was more that it could have been more but they chose not to. Or something. I don't know what was going on, but it just didn't feel like something. Like, I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3 was like, I was praising it to here on end because of how fantastic it was and how for so many years that we waited for this, it was satisfying. And then they just turn around and kind of smack us a little bit with this DLC, saying, you wanted some answers? You wanted a little bit more intrigue into the past? Wait for another couple years, but enjoy this instead. It kind of, that's what it feels like. And that's why Gamer K's final verdict for Kingdom Hearts 3 ReMind DLC, if it had more stuff that I felt like a DLC could have had, like exploring Radiant Garden as Riku, playing as him more, going through all the world as as Riku. Maybe he's the one who investigates the other worlds and the problems. He interacts with some of the Disney characters for once, because the only time he ever did that was when he was being an ass in number 1, or when he was in the dream world in Dream Drop Distance. They could have done so much with Riku, and they chose not to. The main game focused on Sora. The DLC could have focused on Riku, going through the world, discovering the issues, fighting off the monsters. And it's just something that could have been so much more than it was. And that's why with a half a heart, or honestly with a full heart now, and taking everything into account, I have to give ReMind a 6. It deserves a 6. It would have been a 7 if it didn't have the data fights, because who wants to play the same boss fights that you just finished in the main game, not once, but twice in the same DLC, just cranked up the difficulty a little bit? It's something I can't get past, because if there's one thing I don't like in a game, it's repetition of boss fights and enemies. And what I don't like in a DLC is the repetition of boss fights. And that's all I gotta say on the DLC. It was a full-hearted idea, but it just fell really short below the belt. And that's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And coming next week, to end the month of January, I pay tribute to my girlfriend in a game review of her favorite detective. This is Gamer K, logging out.